For some insight into the government's decision, we're joined by Bill Blair, the Federal Minister of Emergency Preparedness and a former Toronto Police Chief. And Minister Blair, we're hearing from various people who say that this act shouldn't have been invoked. For example, Premier Jason Kenney in Alberta says that it wasn't necessary to deal with the protests in his province. Why not use, and you know this given your former job, why not use the many powers that already existed to end these illegal protests?
Well, first of all, what we have seen over the past several days is a significant escalation in action which is targeting critical infrastructure in this country, the border at Coutts, the border in Manitoba, and most importantly to us, the border at Windsor, of which there's an enormous amount of essential goods and services that cross that border each and every day. And the closing of that border was having a very deleterious effect on Canadian interests, on Canadian economy. It was idling Canadian workers, and it was causing significant harm to Canada and to Canadians.
The Windsor border crossing was cleared without the Emergencies Act. So doesn't that show that there already is that power to achieve those goals?
Yeah, two things, Ian. First of all, it took several days in order to clear that blockade, and there is no guarantee that they won't return, and we're, of course, concerned about that. And even with the police action that took place in Coutts, Alberta today, in which very many firearms were located, I think demonstrates the clear risk and threat that these blockades represent to Canada, and it does require the government to take very seriously. And I want to be very clear as well, the actions that we've taken are entirely compliant with the Charter, and people's rights and freedoms will be respected, but we are taking the steps to target the money and the actions that are behind these threats to Canadian infrastructure.
You mentioned what happened in Coutts, and guns were confiscated by the RCMP, body armor. Do you have intelligence to suggest that those same kinds of elements are involved in the Ottawa protest?
Yeah, I think it has become apparent that this is a largely foreign-funded, targeted and concerted effort to harm Canadians and harm Canadian interests. The presence of firearms at Coutts and as discovered by the RCMP today, I think does reveal the very true nature of the seriousness of this threat. And it does require that we do what is required in order to secure Canadian interests, to protect Canadians, to restore the rule of law in our country, and to protect our communities.
Minister Blair, thank you.
Of course. Thank you, man.